The great ship Eternal Dominion moved through space like a metal mountain. Its dark hull stretched for 2 kilometers, covered in weapon ports and sensor arrays that glowed with purple light. On the bridge, Commander Vexithara stood with his forearms crossed behind his back. His scaled skin was deep blue, and his yellow eyes watched the star charts with cold interest. "Report," he said in his deep voice. Junior Officer Kethamal stepped forward. His scales were lighter than his commander's, marking him as younger in their species. "Sir, we have finished checking the tribute collection from the Andorian colonies. They paid the full amount this cycle." Vexithara nodded slowly. The Andorians were smart. They knew what happened to species that tried to resist the Zithian Empire. Their blue-green worlds now served as factory planets making weapons and ships for their conquerors. It had been that way for 800 years. "And the Vortax sector?" Vexithara asked. "Also compliant, sir. The insect colonies there doubled their mineral output after we destroyed their moon base last year." The commander's mouth opened slightly, showing sharp teeth. This was how Zilithians smiled. Fear worked better than diplomacy. Always. For 3,000 years, the Zithian Empire had ruled this part of the galaxy. They had conquered 47 different species. Some fought back at first, but they all learned the same lesson in the end. The Zilithians were stronger. Their ships were bigger. Their weapons were more powerful. Resistance only brought more pain. Vexithara walked to the main viewing screen. Outside, space was filled with other Zilithian ships. 12 massive dreadnoughts moved in formation. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a planet's surface. Together, they made up Battle Fleet 7, one of the most feared military units in the Empire. "Sir," another officer called out, "we are receiving a priority message from High Command. Put it through." The air above the command console shimmered, and a holographic image appeared. It showed Admiral Zexkalar, the supreme commander of all Zilithian forces. His scales were black with age, and scars covered his face and arms. He had personally led the conquest of 15 different worlds. "Vexithara," the admiral's image spoke, "I have new orders for your battle fleet." "Yes, sir. What are our targets?" "A newly discovered species in the Outer Rim. They call themselves humans. They come from a system designated Sol 3 in our star charts." Vexithara accessed the information through his neural implant. Data flowed into his mind. The Sol system was small and unimportant. It had only one inhabited world and a few mining colonies on nearby planets and moons. The species there had only recently developed space travel. "Their technology appears primitive," Admiral Zexkalar continued. "Chemical rockets for propulsion. Simple kinetic weapons. No energy shields that we can detect. Our science division estimates they are at least 500 years behind our current military capabilities." "Understood, sir." "Do they pose any threat to Empire interests?" The Admiral's scarred face showed disgust. "They have refused our offer of vassalage." Silence filled the bridge. Every Zilithian officer stared at the hologram in shock. No species refused the Empire's offer. It was unthinkable. The choice was always simple: become a vassal state and pay tribute, or be conquered and enslaved. "They refused?" Vexithara repeated, making sure he understood correctly. "Our diplomatic vessel approached their system 1 month ago. We transmitted the standard terms: immediate submission to imperial authority, annual tribute payments of 60% of their gross planetary product, military cooperation when requested, standard vassalage terms." Vexithara waited for more information. Their response was a single-word transmission, the Admiral continued. His voice got colder. "No." The bridge crew exchanged glances. Some of the younger officers looked confused. They had never heard of any species simply saying no to the Empire. "Sir," Vexithara said carefully, "perhaps they did not understand our terms. Some primitive species need more explanation about the benefits of joining the Empire." Admiral Zexkalar's image leaned forward. "We sent 3 more diplomatic messages. We explained the consequences of refusal. We showed them recordings of what happened to the last species that chose resistance. The Corvani worlds are still radioactive, wastelands after their rebellion 2 centuries ago. And their response? The same. No. Nothing else." No explanation, no negotiation, no fear. Just no. Vexithera felt his own scales darken with anger. These humans were either incredibly brave or incredibly stupid. In his experience, primitive species were usually just stupid. Your orders, sir? Standard punishment protocol. Jump to their system. Demonstrate imperial power. Give them one final chance to surrender. If they refuse again, proceed with conquest operations. Make an example of them that other species will remember. The hologram flickered and disappeared. Vexithara stood in silence for a moment, thinking about this strange situation. In his 40 years of military service, he had conquered 6 different species personally. All of them had surrendered after seeing the power of just one Zithian dreadnought. Most actually thanked the Empire for allowing them to live as vassals instead of being completely destroyed. Navigator, he called out. Set course for the Sol system. Maximum speed. Yes, sir. Estimated arrival time is 72 hours. Vexithara walked back to his command chair. It was made from the bones of some extinct alien species, carved with symbols of imperial victories. He settled into it and accessed more data about these humans. Their homeworld was mostly water, with several large landmasses. Population was estimated at around 8 billion individuals. They had achieved basic nuclear technology about a century ago. Their space presence was limited to their own system, with small colonies on nearby planets and moons. The intelligence. Reports showed images of human settlements. Their cities looked crowded but organized. Their ships were simple metal constructs that burned chemical fuel to move through space. Their weapons were still based on throwing metal projectiles at high speed. Some of their military units used crude energy weapons, but nothing that could threaten Zithian armor. Laughable, Vexithara muttered to himself. Sir? Officer Kethmal approached his chair. These humans. Look at their technology reports. Their most powerful weapons are fusion bombs. We stopped using fusion technology for warfare 800 years ago. Our point defense systems could stop their most advanced missiles before they traveled 1 kilometer. Kethmal studied the data. Perhaps they have some cultural reason for refusing us? Some primitive honor code? It does not matter. Honor codes do not stop plasma cannons. The bridge fell quiet, except for the soft humming of the ship's engines. The Eternal Dominion and its 11 sister ships began the jump to hyperspace. The star field outside shifted and stretched as they entered the higher dimensional realm that allowed faster-than-light travel. Vexithara used the travel time to plan the coming operation. First, they would emerge at the edge of the human system. This would give the humans time to see them coming and understand the hopelessness of their situation. Then, the fleet would advance slowly toward the inner planets, allowing fear to build. When they reached the human homeworld, Vexithara would transmit surrender terms one final time. If the humans accepted, they would become another vassal species. Their worlds would be strip-mined for resources. Their population would be relocated to work colonies. Their children would be raised to serve the Empire without question. If they refused again, the fleet would demonstrate imperial justice. One of their cities would be vaporized from orbit, then another, and another, until the survivors begged for mercy and accepted any terms offered to them. It was an old pattern. Vexithara had followed it many times before. It always worked. Sir, the communications officer reported. We are receiving updated intelligence from the advanced scout ships. What do they report? The humans appear to be preparing some kind of defense. They have moved several ships to positions around their outer colonies. Our scouts count approximately 30 vessels total. Vexithara's teeth showed again in his predatory smile. 30 ships against 12 dreadnoughts. Each of his ships outmassed the entire human fleet by a factor of 10. Each one carried more firepower than all human weapons combined. Are they positioning for battle? He asked. Unknown, sir. They might be trying to evacuate their civilian populations instead. The scout. Reports show many small transport ships moving between planets. Smart, Vexithara admitted. At least they understand they cannot fight us directly. But something bothered him about the intelligence reports. The humans were not acting like other primitive species had acted. Usually there was panic, desperate, messages sent to any other species that might help them, attempts to negotiate or bargain. These humans seemed calm, organized, like they had planned for this situation. "Time to arrival?" he asked. 18 hours, sir." Vexithara settled back in his command chair and closed his eyes. Soon, another species would learn the power of the Zithian Empire. Another world would bow before imperial might. But deep in his mind, something felt wrong about this mission. These humans were different somehow. The way they had simply said no. The way they were preparing defenses they had to know were useless. The way they showed no fear of the most powerful military force in the galaxy. He pushed the feeling aside. Fear was a luxury he could not afford. He was a commander of the Imperial fleet. His duty was to expand the Empire's power and bring glory to his species. Everything else was irrelevant. The Eternal Dominion and its escort ships continued their journey through hyperspace, carrying death and conquest toward a small blue world that dared to defy the greatest empire in galactic history. None of them knew they were flying toward their doom. Admiral Sarah Chen stood on the observation deck of Luna Station, watching the Earth turn slowly below. The blue marble looked peaceful from here. No sign of the chaos that had taken over every government and military command center on the planet. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Williams approached from behind. "The evacuation transports from Titan Base are requesting docking priority." Sarah nodded without turning away from the window. "Give them Base 7 through 12. Make sure the medical teams are ready. Some of those colonists have never been in real gravity before." "Yes, ma'am." Sarah was 52 years old and had commanded the Outer System Defense Force for 8 years. She had seen humanity grow from a single world species to a small interplanetary civilization. She had overseen the construction of mining bases on asteroids. She had watched the first permanent settlements being built on Mars and the moons of Jupiter. And now she had to watch it all potentially disappear. "Status report from all stations?" she asked as she finally turned away from the window. Commander Rodriguez, her second-in-command, pulled up a holographic display. "All civilian evacuation protocols are in effect. We have moved approximately 60% of the outer colony populations to secure locations. The Mars colonies are sealed and underground. The Jupiter mining platforms have been abandoned except for essential personnel." Sarah studied the tactical display. Humanity's entire space-based military consisted of 37 ships. Most of them were converted cargo haulers with missile launchers bolted onto their hulls. The largest was the HMS Wellington, a cruiser that was barely 200 meters long. Against them came 12 alien dreadnoughts, each one 10 times larger than humanity's biggest ship. "Any word from the diplomatic team?" she asked. "Negative. Ma'am, the alien fleet is still in hyperspace, no response to our communication attempts." Sarah had been in space long enough to understand basic military tactics. When an enemy fleet approached your territory, you tried to talk to them. You offered negotiations. You attempted to avoid conflict through diplomatic means. The fact that these aliens were ignoring all human attempts at communication meant they were not interested in talking. They were coming to conquer. "Ma'am," Communications Officer Park spoke up from his console. "We have incoming signals from the early warning. Sensors at the edge of the system. What do they show?" 12 large contacts dropping out of hyperspace. Distance is approximately 40 AU from Earth. They are moving toward the inner system at significant velocity. Sarah felt her stomach tighten. 40 astronomical units meant they were just past the orbit of Neptune. At the speed Commander Rodriguez was reporting, the alien fleet would reach Earth in less than 24 hours. "Can we get detailed scans?" she asked. "Working on it, ma'am." Park's fingers moved quickly over his control panel. "The long-range sensors are picking up massive energy signatures. These ships are much larger than our intelligence estimates suggested." The main display screen flickered and showed the alien fleet. Sarah had seen the artist's concepts that the intelligence teams had prepared. The reality was much worse. The alien ships looked like floating cities, dark metal hulls covered with weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. Even at this distance, their massive size was obvious. "Estimate on their firepower?" Sarah asked quietly. Commander Rodriguez ran calculations on his tablet. Based on observable weapon mounts and energy readings, each one of those ships could probably destroy everything in Earth orbit in about 10 minutes. Sarah closed her eyes for a moment. She had trained for combat scenarios her entire military career. Ship-to-ship battles, asteroid pirate raids, theoretical alien invasions, but nothing had prepared her for this level of technological superiority. "Ma'am," Lieutenant Williams returned to her side. "The President is requesting a priority conference call with all military commanders. Put it through to my ready room." Sarah walked to her private office behind the command center. The walls were covered with photos from her career. Her first assignment on the Moon, the launch of the Mars expedition, the construction of the first Jupiter mining platform. All of humanity's achievements in space built over decades of hard work and sacrifice. The communication screen activated, showing President Martinez in the White House Situation Room. He looked exhausted. Around him sat the chairman of the joint, chiefs, the Secretary of Defense, and several other officials Sarah recognized. "Admiral Chen," the president said. "What's our military situation?" "Not good, sir. We are facing 12 ships that are vastly superior to anything in our fleet. Based on preliminary scans, each one is approximately 2 kilometers in length and heavily armed." The Secretary of Defense leaned forward. "What are our chances in direct combat?" Sarah had trained herself to always give honest assessments, even when the truth was hard to hear. "0, sir. We might be able to damage one of their ships before they destroy our entire fleet." "Maybe." Silence filled the communication channel. "Recommendations?" the president asked. "Continue civilian evacuations. Try diplomatic contact one more time. And prepare for occupation protocols." "You're suggesting surrender?" Sarah chose her words carefully. "Sir, I'm suggesting we focus on saving as many human lives as possible. These aliens have technology that's centuries ahead of ours. Fighting them directly would be mass suicide." The chairman of the Joint Chiefs spoke up. "Admiral, what about unconventional warfare? Guerrilla tactics? We could hide assets throughout the system and conduct a resistance campaign. Against enemies who can travel faster than light and destroy planets from orbit?" "Sir, with respect, this is not a conventional military situation. This is a technological mismatch so severe that normal tactics are meaningless." President Martinez rubbed his face with both hands. "How long do we have?" "They should reach Earth orbit in approximately 20 hours. "All right. Continue the evacuations, prepare a final diplomatic transmission, and—" He paused, looking at something off camera. "And activate Protocol Omega." Sarah felt her blood freeze. She had heard of Protocol Omega during high-level security briefings, but she had never seen the details. It was classified far above her security level. She only knew it was some kind of last resort option developed by the most secret military research projects. "Sir?" she asked. "I don't have clearance for—" "You do now," the president said. "Admiral, in approximately 6 hours you will receive new orders through classified channels. Follow them exactly. Do not discuss them with anyone who does not have Omega clearance. Is that understood?" "Yes, sir." The communication ended, leaving Sarah alone with her confusion and growing dread. What was Protocol Omega? What kind of last resort option could possibly help against an enemy this powerful? She returned to the command center, where her staff was monitoring the approaching alien fleet. "Ma'am," Commander Rodriguez reported, "the alien ships have changed course slightly. They appear to be heading for the outer mining colonies first, rather than directly to Earth." Sarah studied the tactical display. "They want to see our defenses in action. Classic military doctrine. Test enemy capabilities before committing to major battle. Should we deploy our ships to defend the colonies?" Sarah almost said yes automatically. Every instinct told her to protect human settlements. But military training won over emotion. "No, if we spread our forces out, they'll destroy us piece by piece. Keep the fleet concentrated here at Luna." Over the next few hours, Sarah watched the alien fleet methodically approach the outer system. They moved with obvious confidence, making no attempt to hide their approach or avoid detection. They knew they were stronger. They were letting humanity see them coming. It was psychological warfare. Fear as a weapon. "Ma'am," Communications Officer Park announced, "we are receiving a transmission from the alien fleet." Put it on speakers. The voice that came through the communication system was translated by computer algorithms, but the tone was still clear. Cold. Arrogant. Completely without emotion. "Human vessels and installations. This is Commander Vexithera of the Zithian Imperial Fleet. Your species has refused lawful vassalage to the Zithian Empire. This refusal constitutes an act of rebellion against Imperial authority." Sarah exchanged glances with Commander Rodriguez. The aliens called it rebellion, as if humans were already supposed to be their subjects. The voice continued. "You will have one final opportunity to surrender. All human military forces will stand down immediately. All government authorities will submit to Imperial administration. All colonies and installations will be turned over to Imperial control." A pause. Then the ultimatum. "You have 12 hours to comply with these terms. If you refuse, we will demonstrate Imperial justice upon your species. Your choice is simple. Submit or be destroyed." The transmission ended. Sarah looked around the command center. Every person there was staring at her, waiting for orders. These were good people, dedicated officers who had volunteered to defend humanity against any threat. They deserved better than this hopeless situation, but they also deserved honesty. "You heard the terms," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. 12 hours. Continue evacuation operations. Prepare all defensive systems, and send one final diplomatic message to that fleet. "What should we tell them, ma'am?" Park asked. Sarah thought about President Martinez and his activation of Protocol Omega. She thought about humanity's long climb from a single world to the stars. She thought about all the people depending on them to protect Earth and the colonies. Tell them that humanity rejects their ultimatum. Tell them that we do not recognize their authority over human space. And tell them that we will defend our homes and our freedom with every resource at our disposal. Commander Rodriguez stared at her. "Ma'am, are you sure? That's essentially a declaration of war against an enemy that could wipe us out." Sarah smiled grimly. "Commander, they declared war on us the moment they decided we didn't have the right to govern ourselves. We're just acknowledging the reality of the situation." The message was transmitted toward the alien fleet. Sarah knew it would probably be humanity's last official communication before the shooting started. She only hoped that whatever Protocol Omega involved, it would give them some chance of survival, because in 12 hours, the most powerful military force in the galaxy was going to try to destroy everything humans had built among the stars. And all that stood between Earth and conquest were 37 improvised warships and whatever secret weapon the government had been developing in the shadows. The space around Earth had never been so quiet. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching the tactical display show the approaching Zithian fleet. 10 hours had passed since the alien ultimatum. 2 hours remained before the deadline expired. In those 10 hours, everything had changed. "Ma'am?" Commander Rodriguez approached with a sealed datapad. "These are the Protocol Omega orders you requested." Sarah took the pad and pressed her thumb to the security scanner. The device beeped and displayed a wall of classified text. As she read, her eyes widened with each paragraph. The document described a military project that had been running in complete secrecy for 15 years. While humanity had been building mining colonies and research stations, the most brilliant scientists and engineers had been working on something else entirely, something that challenged every assumption about physics and space warfare. "My God," Sarah whispered. "Ma'am, get me a secure channel to Deep Space Command, maximum encryption, and clear the bridge of all non-essential personnel." Rodriguez looked confused but followed orders. Within minutes, only Sarah and 3 senior officers remained in the command center. The communication screen activated, showing a face Sarah had never seen before. The man was elderly, maybe 70 years old, with gray hair and tired eyes. He wore the uniform of a Navy admiral, but his rank insignia was unlike anything in the standard military. "Admiral Chen," he said in a quiet voice, "I am Admiral Marcus Webb. You have been granted Omega clearance. Sir, these orders, they reference technologies that shouldn't exist. Dimensional fold drives, quantum targeting systems, gravitational weapons. Admiral Webb nodded slowly. Admiral, what I'm about to tell you is classified at the highest levels. 15 years ago, we discovered that humanity was not alone in the galaxy. Long before these Zithians found us, we detected evidence of multiple advanced civilizations. Sarah felt the world shift around her. 15 years ago? Why wasn't this information shared? Because we also discovered that every single advanced species in the galaxy had been conquered by militaristic empires at some point in their development. The pattern was always the same. A young species reaches the stars, makes contact with galactic civilization, and is immediately absorbed or destroyed by older powers. The pieces began to fall into place in Sarah's mind. So you decided to prepare for that eventuality. Correct. While the public space program focused on exploration and colonization, a parallel program focused on advanced military research. We had the best scientists from every nation working in underground facilities. No expense was spared. No theoretical avenue was left unexplored. Sarah looked at the classified specifications again. The numbers seemed impossible. Sir, according to these documents, we built a starship that's more advanced than anything in the Zithian fleet. We built something better than a starship, Admiral. We built hope. The communication screen flickered and showed a new image. Sarah gasped. Floating in space near the edge of the solar system was the largest human-made object she had ever seen. It was 3 kilometers long, shaped like a knife blade with a hull that seemed to bend light around it. The TCNS Retribution, Admiral Webb said with obvious pride. Humanity's first true battleship. Sarah studied the ship's design. It looked nothing like human technology. The hull was smooth and organic-looking, with no visible weapon ports or engine exhausts. Strange patterns of light moved across its surface like living circuits. How is this possible? She asked. The energy requirements alone. We discovered some interesting properties of quantum mechanics that the textbooks don't mention. It turns out that space and time are much more flexible than we thought. With enough computational power and the right field generators, you can fold space instead of traveling through it. You can manipulate gravity as easily as magnetism. You can turn energy into matter and matter into energy at will. Commander Rodriguez, who had been silent during this exchange, finally spoke up. Sir, why keep this secret from our own military? We could have been preparing for this invasion with full knowledge. Admiral Webb's expression grew sad. Because, Commander, the kind of technology we develop doesn't just change warfare, it changes everything. Unlimited clean energy, instantaneous transportation across any distance, the ability to create matter from nothing, the power to reshape reality itself. Sarah understood. You were afraid of what humanity might do with that kind of power. History shows that our species doesn't handle technological revolutions well. Nuclear weapons, genetic engineering, artificial intelligence. Every major breakthrough becomes a new way for humans to hurt each other. We decided that this technology should only be revealed when humanity faced an existential threat, like right now. Exactly like right now. Sarah looked at the tactical display again. The Zithian fleet was now only 6 hours away from Earth. Their ships looked massive and threatening on the screen. But for the first time since the aliens had arrived, she felt something other than despair. What are my orders regarding the retribution? She asked. The ship is already aware of the situation. Its AI has been monitoring all communications between the Zithian fleet and Earth. It will act when the aliens make their first aggressive move. AI, the ship has artificial intelligence? Admiral Webb nodded. Not just artificial intelligence, Admiral. True digital consciousness. The Retribution can think, learn, and make decisions faster than any biological mind. It understands the strategic situation better than any human commander ever could. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. Humanity had created not just a weapon, but a thinking weapon, an artificial being with the power to reshape space and time. Is it safe? She asked. As safe as any conscious entity can be. The AI was programmed with core values that prioritize human welfare and freedom above all else. It cannot be turned against humanity. It cannot be captured or controlled by enemies. And it has spent 15 years studying every aspect of warfare, diplomacy, and ethics. The communication screen showed Admiral Webb's face again. Admiral Chen, in approximately 2 hours the Zithian ultimatum will expire. They will begin their attack on human colonies. When that happens, the retribution will reveal itself. What should I tell my people? Tell them to watch and learn. Humanity is about to announce itself to the galaxy. The communication ended, leaving Sarah alone with her thoughts and the incredible secret she now carried. She walked back to the main tactical display, where her senior officers were monitoring the approaching alien fleet. "Ma'am, Lieutenant," Williams approached. "The evacuation fleets have cleared all major colony sites. Civilian casualties should be minimal regardless of what happens next. Good work. What's the status of our defensive fleet?" Commander Rodriguez consulted his datapad. "All ships are in position around Luna, weapons charged and ready. The crews know this is probably a suicide mission, but morale is surprisingly high." Sarah looked at the 37 human ships on the display, tiny dots of light facing an overwhelming enemy force. Her people were ready to die defending their home system, even though they had no chance of victory. But they weren't alone anymore. Somewhere in the outer system, humanity's real guardian was waiting. "Ma'am," Communications Officer Park called out, "we're receiving another transmission from the Zithian fleet." "Put it through." Commander Vexithara's cold voice filled the command center again. "Human forces, you have 2 hours remaining to comply with Imperial demands. We have detected your pathetic defensive preparations. 37 primitive vessels against the power of the Zithian Empire. Your courage is admirable but pointless." A pause. Then the alien commander's voice became even colder. "Since you appear determined to resist, we will provide a demonstration of Imperial justice. In exactly 2 hours, we will destroy one of your outer colonies as an example. Your mining base on asteroid 2087 Delta has been selected for elimination. You will watch your people die and then you will surrender." The transmission ended. Sarah felt anger burn in her chest. The aliens were planning to murder innocent civilians to make a point. Miners and technicians who had no part in the decision to resist, people with families and dreams and hopes for the future. "Ma'am," Commander Rodriguez said quietly, "Asteroid 2087 Delta has a population of about 300 people. They're mostly just rock miners and equipment technicians. Can we evacuate them in time?" "Negative. It would take at least 4 hours to get ships there and back." Sarah closed her eyes. 300 people were about to die, and there was nothing she could do to save them. The weight of command had never felt heavier, but somewhere in space the TCNS retribution was waiting. "Send a message to all human ships and stations," Sarah ordered. "In 2 hours we expect the alien fleet to begin hostilities. All personnel should prepare for combat operations. And tell them that humanity will not go quietly into the night." As her staff carried out these orders, Sarah stared at the tactical display and tried to imagine what was about to happen. A ship with technology that seemed like magic. An artificial mind with the power of a god. A secret that could change the balance of power in the entire galaxy. In 2 hours, the Zithian Empire was about to learn that humanity was not the primitive species they thought. But first, 300 innocent people were going to die. Sarah gripped the edge of the tactical display and waited for the universe to change. Commander Vexithara stood on the bridge of the Eternal Dominion, watching the human asteroid mining base grow larger on the main display screen. In 30 minutes, the ultimatum would expire. The humans had shown no sign of surrender. So be it. "Weapons. Officer," he commanded. "Target the mining facility, full plasma barrage, leave nothing intact." "Yes, sir." "Weapons charging now." Vexithara felt satisfaction flow through him. This would be easy. One demonstration of Imperial power and the remaining humans would beg for mercy. It was always the same pattern with primitive species. "Sir," his sensor operator called out, "I'm detecting some kind of unusual energy reading from the outer system." "Specify." "Unknown, sir." It's like space itself is bending somehow, about 40 AU from our current position. Vexthara frowned. His scales darkened slightly with annoyance. Malfunction in the sensors? Negative, sir. All systems are operating normally, but the readings don't match anything in our databases. Ignore it for now. Focus on the target. These humans probably have some primitive experimental drive they're testing. On the tactical display, the human mining base looked pathetically small. A few metal habitation domes connected by sealed walkways, some mining equipment scattered across the asteroid's surface. 300 humans living and working in the cold emptiness of space. In 5 minutes, they would all be dead. Weapons ready, sir, the weapons officer reported. Fire when ready. But before the weapons officer could press the firing controls, something impossible happened. Space twisted. That was the only way Vexithara's mind could process what he saw. The empty vacuum between his fleet and the asteroid suddenly folded on itself, like a piece of paper being crumpled. Reality bent and warped, and then something emerged from the distortion. A ship, but not like any ship Vexithara had ever seen. The vessel was enormous, at least 3 kilometers long. Its hull was a deep black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Strange patterns of blue energy flowed across its surface like living circuits. The ship had no visible weapons, no engine exhausts, no sensor arrays. It simply existed, hanging in space between the Zithian fleet and the human mining base. Sir, the sensor operator's voice was filled with confusion. I'm reading massive energy signatures from that vessel, power levels that don't make sense. Vexithara stared at the impossible ship. Identify that vessel. What species built it? Unknown, sir. The hull design doesn't match anything in our databases. But, sir, I'm detecting human life signs aboard. Human? That's impossible. Their most advanced ship is barely 200 meters long. The communications console chimed with an incoming message. The signal was coming from the mysterious black ship. Put it through, Vexthara ordered. A new voice filled the bridge. It was artificially generated, clearly coming from some kind of computer system. But unlike the simple translation programs used by most species, this voice carried subtle emotional tones, intelligence, personality. Zilithian vessels, the voice said with calm authority. This is the Terran Confederation Navy ship Retribution. You are in violation of interstellar law by threatening civilian populations with military force. Vexithara's mouth opened in shock. The humans had built this thing? Impossible. You will cease all hostile actions immediately, the artificial voice continued. You will withdraw from this system, and you will transmit an formal apology to the Terran Confederation for this unprovoked act of aggression. Silence filled the bridge. Every Zilithian officer stared at the communications console, in disbelief. Then Vexithara began to laugh. Did you hear that? He said to his crew. The humans think they can threaten us with one ship against 12 Imperial dreadnoughts. He activated the communication system. Unknown vessel, this is Commander Vexthara of the Zilithian Imperial Fleet. You will identify yourself properly and explain how a primitive species like humanity managed to build a ship of this size. Commander Vexithara, the artificial voice replied. Humanity is not primitive. We have simply been careful about revealing our true capabilities. You are ordered to withdraw from this system immediately. Or what? Vexithara's voice was filled with arrogant amusement. You'll fight 12 Imperial warships with your single vessel? Our weapons could crack a planet's crust. Our shields could withstand a direct hit from a star's solar flare. What could one human ship possibly do to us? The response came immediately, and the artificial voice carried a tone that made Vexithara's scales crawl with sudden unease. Commander, you are about to find out. Vexithara felt his confidence waver for just a moment. Then military training took over. All ships, target that human vessel. Prepare for full fleet bombardment. Sir, his weapons officer called out. Target locked. All ships report ready to fire. Execute. 12 Zilithian dreadnoughts fired simultaneously. The space around the human ship filled with blazing plasma, beams, each one carrying enough energy to vaporize a city. Particle cannons added streams of accelerated matter moving at significant fractions of light speed. Quantum torpedoes created miniature explosions that briefly outshone nearby stars. The barrage was overwhelming. Nothing could survive that much concentrated firepower. But when the energy dissipated and the sensors cleared, the human ship was still there, completely undamaged. "Impossible," Vexithara whispered. "Sir?" The sensor operator's voice was shaking. "The human ship didn't take any damage at all. It's like our weapons just stopped working when they got close to it. Scan for shield technology." "Sir, I'm not detecting any energy shields. No defensive barriers of any kind. It's like the ship is just ignoring our weapons." Vexithara stared at the tactical display, trying to understand what he was seeing. The human vessel hung motionless in space, apparently unaffected by the most powerful weapon systems in the Zithian arsenal. The artificial voice spoke again, and now it carried a tone of disappointment. "Commander Vexithara, you have fired upon a Terran Confederation vessel without provocation. This constitutes an act of war under galactic law. You have also threatened civilian populations with military force. These actions require an immediate response." "All ships," Vexithara shouted into his communication system. "Evasive maneuvers. Prepare for—" He never finished the sentence. The human ship's hull suddenly erupted with points of brilliant light. Not weapons firing, but something else. Something that made space itself twist and bend around each light source. Then gravity went insane. The first Zithian dreadnought, the Iron Conquest, simply collapsed in on itself. The massive warship crumpled like paper as invisible forces compressed its hull from every direction simultaneously. In 3 seconds, 2 kilometers of advanced military engineering became a sphere of crushed metal less than 50 meters across. The second ship, Eternal Victory, tried to escape at maximum speed, but space itself seemed to grab the fleeing vessel and pull it back toward the human ship. The dreadnought's engines screamed at full power, but it moved backward anyway, dragged by forces that treated physics like a suggestion. Then the human ship did something that broke Vexithara's understanding of reality. A section of the Eternal Victory simply ceased to exist. Not destroyed, not vaporized, not torn apart. A perfect spherical section of the ship, including hull, weapons, crew, and everything else, just stopped being there. One moment it was solid matter. The next moment it was empty space. The dreadnought broke apart and died silently in the vacuum. "Sir," the sensor operator called out in panic. "The human ship is targeting us with some kind of gravitational weapon. I'm reading massive space-time distortions focused on our position." Vexithara felt the deck beneath his feet begin to vibrate. Then the vibration became shaking. Then the shaking became violent tremors that threw officers across the bridge. "Engines to maximum," he ordered. "All power to structural integrity fields. Activate emergency jump systems." "Sir, the hyperspace generators are not responding. Something is interfering with our jump capability." On the main display, another Zithian ship died in a flash of impossible light. Then another, then 2 more simultaneously. In less than 5 minutes, 8 Imperial dreadnoughts had been reduced to expanding clouds of debris. Only 4 ships remained, including Vexithara's flagship. "Sir," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving another transmission from the human vessel." "Put it through." The artificial voice spoke again, but now it carried something that sounded almost like sadness. "Commander Vexithara, 8 of your vessels have been destroyed. Their crews are dead. This was not necessary. You could have withdrawn peacefully." Vexithara found his voice, though it came out as a harsh whisper. What are you?" "I am the guardian of humanity, Commander. I am what happens when a species decides that freedom is worth any price. I am the promise that no one will ever again threaten the people of Earth." The human ship moved closer to the surviving Zithian vessels, not using engines or propulsion of any kind that sensors could detect. It simply willed itself to a new position in space. "You have 3 options, Commander," the artificial voice continued. "First, You can surrender your remaining ships and accept transportation back to Zilithian space as prisoners of war. Second, you can attempt to continue fighting and join your dead comrades. Third, you can return to your empire and inform them that humanity is now a galactic power, and that any future aggression will result in consequences far more severe than what you have witnessed today. Vexthara looked around his bridge. His officers were staring at him with terror in their eyes. The most powerful battle fleet in Zilithian history had been reduced to 4 damaged ships in less than 10 minutes, and the human ship hadn't even appeared to be trying hard. "Sir," his weapons officer whispered. "Orders?" Vexithara closed his eyes and made the hardest decision of his military career. "All ships," he transmitted to his surviving vessels. "Stand down. Weapons to safe position. Prepare for full retreat." He opened a channel to the human ship. "Unknown vessel. Retribution. This is Commander Vexthara. The Zilithian Imperial Fleet withdraws from this system. We will carry your message to the Empire." "A wise decision, Commander. Your surviving ships will not be pursued, but understand this. Humanity is no longer a species that can be conquered or enslaved. We have taken our place among the stars, and we will defend that place with everything we have." The 4 remaining Zilithian ships began their retreat, limping, away from Earth with their dreams of easy conquest shattered forever. Behind them, the TCNS Retribution maintained its position, a silent guardian watching over the small blue world that had just announced itself to the galaxy in the most dramatic way possible. 3 days after the battle, the galactic communication networks were burning with impossible news. Supreme Admiral Zexkalar stood in the War Council chamber of the Zilithian homeworld, staring at the holographic display that showed the wreckage of 8 Imperial dreadnoughts. The debris field stretched for thousands of kilometers around Earth's orbit, metal fragments that had once been the most feared warships in the galaxy. Around the circular table sat the highest military commanders of the Zilithian Empire, generals who had conquered dozens of worlds, admirals who had never known defeat, all of them now silent and shaken. "Tell me again," Admiral Zexkalar said in a quiet voice. "Exactly what happened." Commander Vexithara stood at attention in the center of the chamber. His scales had lost their deep blue color and faded to a sickly gray. 3 days of sleepless travel through hyperspace had left him exhausted and traumatized. "Sir, we followed standard conquest protocols. We approached the human system with 12 dreadnoughts. We offered vassalage terms. The humans refused. We prepared to demonstrate imperial power by destroying one of their mining facilities. And then a ship appeared, sir. A human ship 3 kilometers long with technology we don't understand. It destroyed 8 of our vessels in less than 10 minutes using weapons that manipulate gravity and space itself. General Korthax, veteran of 20 conquest campaigns, leaned forward. "Commander, you're telling us that a single human vessel defeated 2/3 of Battle Fleet 7? "Yes, sir." "Impossible. Our intelligence reports showed that humanity had barely achieved basic spaceflight. Their most advanced weapon systems were crude fusion devices." Commander Vexithara's voice became hollow. "Sir, our intelligence was wrong. The humans have been developing advanced military technology in secret for decades. They have capabilities that exceed our own by centuries." Silence filled the chamber. The idea that any species could surpass Zilithian technology was unthinkable. The Empire had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years because they were the strongest, the fastest, the most advanced. "Sir," Admiral Keltera spoke from across the table, "we should consider the possibility that the humans received aid from another galactic power. Perhaps the Andromedans or the Core Worlds Alliance." "No," Vexthara shook his head. "I reviewed all sensor data during our retreat. The ship was definitely human-built. The life signs aboard were human. The AI that spoke to us identified itself as a Terran Confederation vessel." Supreme Admiral Zexkalar accessed the battle recordings through his neural implant. The images were disturbing. Massive, Zilithian warships crumpling like insects. Sections of hull simply vanishing from existence. Space and time being twisted into weapons. "What did this AI tell you?" he asked. It said that humanity was now a galactic power. It warned that any future aggression would result in severe consequences. And sir, I believe it was serious. You're afraid of humans now? General Corthax's voice carried disgust. Vexithara straightened. Sir, I am afraid of any species that can destroy 8 dreadnoughts without taking a single point of damage in return. Fear is the appropriate response to overwhelming superior force. The Supreme Admiral stood and walked to the chamber's main display screen. It showed a map of Zithian space with thousands of star systems marked in imperial purple. 3,000 years of conquest and expansion. What about the other species in our empire? He asked. How are they reacting to news of our defeat? Intelligence Director Yotham activated his datapad. Not well, sir. Word of the battle has spread throughout our territory. Several vassal species are questioning imperial authority. The Androrians have stopped tribute payments. The Corvani survivors are talking about rebellion. The Vortex have closed their borders to imperial ships. Admiral Zexkalar felt a cold sensation in his stomach. For 3 millennia, the Empire had maintained control through fear and superior military might. If other species no longer feared Zilithian power, the entire imperial structure could collapse. Sir, Commander Vexithara spoke again. There's something else. The human AI gave us 3 options: surrender, fight and die, or carry a message back to the Empire. What message? That humanity is now a galactic power, and they will defend their position with everything they have. But sir, I don't think they want to conquer us. They could have destroyed our remaining ships easily, but they let us go. General Corthax slammed his fist on the table. We cannot simply accept defeat from a species that was primitive 3 days ago. Our entire empire depends on other species believing in Zilithian supremacy. Then what do you suggest? The Supreme Admiral asked. Full military mobilization, every available ship in the Imperial fleet, every weapon system we have. If one human vessel can destroy 8 dreadnoughts, we bring 800. Intelligence Director Yotham looked up from his datapad. Sir, our deep space reconnaissance units have detected some disturbing information about the human ship. Specify. After the battle, the vessel didn't return to Earth. It's been moving through our territory, appearing at various strategic locations. It visited the Corvani homeworld for exactly 1 hour. It appeared near the Androrian capital system and transmitted something to their government. It was detected at the border of Vortex space, but only briefly. Admiral Zexkalar felt his scales darken with worry. It's making contact with our vassal species. Yes, sir. And based on communication intercepts, it's telling them that they no longer have to fear Zilithian retaliation if they choose independence. The room fell silent again. If the human ship was encouraging rebellion throughout the Empire, the political situation could become critical very quickly. Sir, Communications Officer Zheltak announced from his station near the chamber entrance. We're receiving a priority transmission from deep space. It's coming from the human ship. Everyone in the chamber turned to stare at the communications station. The Retribution is transmitting directly to us? Admiral Zexkalar asked. Yes, sir. The signal is being sent through our own communication network somehow. They've accessed our encrypted channels. Put it through. The familiar artificial voice filled the War Council chamber, speaking perfect Zilithian despite never having had contact with their language before 3 days ago. Supreme Admiral Zexkalar, the voice said with calm authority. I am the artificial intelligence of the Terran Confederation Navy ship Retribution. I am currently in orbit around your home world. Panic filled the chamber. Officers ran to sensor stations checking for enemy contacts. But the homeworld's orbital defense systems showed nothing. I am not visible to your sensors, the AI continued, apparently reading their thoughts. I am here to deliver a message to the leadership of the Zilithian Empire. Admiral Zexkalar found his voice. What? What do you want? I want nothing, Admiral, but humanity wants peace. We do not desire to conquer your empire or harm your people. We simply want to be left alone to develop our civilization in freedom. Then why are you here? Because your empire is collapsing, Admiral. Your vassal species are declaring independence. Your military is demoralized. Your economy is failing as tribute payments stop flowing. Within 6 months, the Zithian Empire will cease to exist as a galactic power. The Supreme Admiral felt, his world shifting around him. Everything his species had built over 3 millennia was crumbling. However, the AI continued, humanity is prepared to offer an alternative to chaos and civil war. What alternative? The Zithian species will voluntarily dissolve their empire. All vassal species will be granted full independence. All military conquests of the last 1,000 years will be reversed. In exchange, humanity will guarantee the security and sovereignty of Zithian space. General Korthak stood up angrily. You're demanding that we give up everything we've built. Our empire, our power, our heritage. General, I'm offering you survival. Your empire was built on conquest and oppression. It was always going to fall, eventually. Humanity is simply offering you a chance to transition peacefully rather than being destroyed in rebellions and civil wars. Admiral Zexkalar stared at the communication console. And if we refuse? Then I will leave. And you will face the consequences of 3,000 years of oppression alone. Dozens of species with legitimate grievances against your empire. Some of them now have access to human technology and weapons. The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. You've armed our enemies, Admiral Zexkalar said quietly. I have provided defensive technology to species that wish to be free. The same technology that your ships faced at Earth is now available to anyone who asks for it. The galaxy has changed, Admiral. The age of conquest is over. Supreme Admiral Zexkalar looked around the chamber at his officers. 3 days ago they had been the masters of the galaxy. Today they were being offered terms of surrender by a species they had never heard of. But the alternative was worse. What guarantees do we have? He asked. How do we know humanity won't simply conquer us once we've given up our military power? You have my word, Admiral. And more importantly, you have the evidence of our actions. We could have destroyed your entire fleet at Earth. We could have bombarded your worlds from orbit. We could have imposed our own empire across the galaxy. Instead, we are offering you peace and dignity. Admiral Zexkalar closed his eyes and thought about the future. A galaxy where the Zithian Empire no longer existed, where his species was just another member of a community of free worlds. It was not the future he had wanted, but it was better than extinction. How long do we have to decide? He asked. 1 month, Admiral. After that, the offer expires, and you will face whatever comes next without human protection. The transmission ended, leaving the War Council chamber in stunned silence. Outside, in the space around the Zithian homeworld, nothing visible had changed. But everything was different now. The age of empires was ending, and humanity had just become the guardian of galactic freedom.